Okay, so what we're doing right now in this meeting is going through a list of issues that are in the various Quercus project repositories, I should say. And we've just finished doing the first one, which was the documentation issue number 4, calling for someone to help with the administrative pieces of managing meetings, arranging meetings, agendas, and that kind of thing. And Jamie Johnson has graciously volunteered to do that. So we put a comment in about that and closed it. And the next issue is in tests. And so we'll go to the issues for, there's only one. And unless I'm mistaken, why can't I put a comment in here? Why am I, oh, I have to click on that. You responded to this already, Carl. And it seems like we should just simply confirm with the others that it makes sense to put test plans into the tests repo, which I hope will eventually become a subdirectory of a single repo someday, but that's another issue.
Yeah, so just put a new directory in that repository named docs, DOCS, right? And then
what repository?
Well, so you're asking whether or not we should put this in the docs repo that I created a week or two ago.
Test repo. He means test repo.
Right. Yeah.
Carl, you created a test repo, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so you're talking about the implementation of putting a subdirectory in the test repo, and for each subsystem, let's call it, or piece of hardware or something, there would be presumably another directory that has all of the
exactly.
The stuff.
So right. So you have one parent directory named docs, and in that you put all the subdirectories for each different type of documentation you want to put in there.
Okay, let me put that in see if I can write that into a comment.
I think that's the same thing Rob just said anyway.
Right. I think the confusion was that you meant test and you said docs, like we all substitute one word for another.
Okay.
And so he was going, why are you talking about the docs repo? And you heard yourself say test very clearly.
Yeah, I heard test.
I can only empathize because I've never done it.
Out of my mouth.
Oh no, that's never happened to me either in the last five minutes. Okay, so what else? What other comments have we got about this? Shall we just close it with this comment?
I think that does it.
Oh, actually, we shouldn't close it until the docs subdirectory appears.
Right.
So why don't you do that, Carl, and then just close it?
I'm sorry, I missed that. I ran out of the room for a sec.
I just added a comment that says just create a doc subdir in the repo and then have per subsystem subdirectories. And I'm saying, why don't I just put this comment in, and then when you add the docs subdirectory with you have to put a file in it or it won't actually happen. You could put a README, capital README .md file in it, which would be great to have a synopsis.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we should put a README in the docs directory. That's what you're saying?
For sure. Otherwise, when you commit it, nothing.
Subdoc directories are. I'd go ahead and create what we're talking about, and then close the case that that you've created it. That's, I think, the summary level, right? And the details of what you have to create will all work out.
So I'm gonna be out of state from Monday the 1st till till August 15th, 15 days. And I'm not going to be able to do much of anything in that period of time.
All right. So do you want me to create it and close the case?
You can do that if you want.
Or will you get to it? Or will you get to it before you leave?
Actually,
do you think?
I can do it before. I'll bet I can do it faster than anybody. But
sure, go for it.
We could have a race. Yeah. Okay. So actually, I don't have.
I created the repo doesn't mean I'm the only one that can put anything in it.
Right.
Well, we thought you were off to a great start, and didn't want to discourage. You know, we didn't want to jump in the way of your. I'm kidding. So I just have to. I forgot I don't have a clone of that repo. So I'm just typing something in to remember to do that. All right. So let's go to the next one. That was very good. Hello. Go back here. Oh, go to the list. All right. The next thing is a docs item, and I had a big surprise yesterday when I put the meeting notice to the TriEmbed email list. A guy named Ron Craig had apparently not seen anything else about the work, and he pinged me with a fantastic an email that is so good I have to read it to you. He sounds like a real tech writer to me. He said, I haven't been keeping track, so I don't know what Quercus ESP32 plus FPGA community project is. But if you're looking for writers, that may be an advantage. Okay. Ta-da-da.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, so I haven't connected with Ron yet. Actually, I did send him some a quick, this is what the project is, few paragraphs, but for some reason I just haven't connected with him. But we crossed paths at shoot, what was that commercial makerspace in Raleigh for a while, Tech Shop, and then he stopped by the booth at the Hamfest and tried hard to win the microscope, but somebody else that was buying massive numbers of tickets beat him. So anyway, my hope is that he will join us, and if we go back and look at this particular thing, initially it's just two things that are in this particular issue. I'm going to learn the vocabulary eventually. So I wrote the initial quote, user manual, close quote, using WordPress, and then transmogrified it into an open LibreOffice ODT file, and then from that generated an HTML. And those last two files are sitting in the q_doc repo, waiting to be turned into something that looks better than the original, the thing that's sitting on the TriEmbed website. But also, we really need, in the readme.md file, which is what's displayed when you visit a repo, the thing that you see when you scroll down past the cruft at the top, The text you see is the contents of a file called readme.md with all capital letters for readme. And that is the perfect place for us to put a top level synopsis to give people a clue what the heck the project's about, followed by additional detail and links to specific information and so on and so forth. It should, in my opinion, should be the hub that people go to get information about the project. And the initial thing that would be fantastically helpful would be a few paragraphs that capture both what the project is about, where it's at, and the kind of near future, farther future expectations of where it's going, so that Joe Blodge can visit that repo with one hyperlink and read it and be enlightened, and also be able to get the additional information. And if we do it right, we will all be going to that a lot, because I, for one, cannot remember where the pinout for the dip board sits. I have to stop and remind myself, where is that thing that shows the pinout of the little FPGA dip board that we're using? It takes me up to 60 seconds to remember which repo it's in. So we really need that as a priority. And my goal is to connect with Ron, and having no prior exposure is perfect, in my opinion, because he will have all of the questions that he can get answers to. He can pry the answers out of all of us and put it together into a coherent, well-written thing. So that's what that issue is about. And I will add a comment that says, hoping Ron Craig will be able to tackle the orientation guide as the first part of a top level README. Let's say cleaning up user manual. Well, I should actually, let's go ahead, and since he's not in the room, virtual room, orientation guide, and user manual. Is the first parts. No, I've messed this up. What's that? Okay, the dog likes it, so I'm submitting that comment. What's next? Project plan.
Sorry, I'm stuffing food in my mouth while you're talking.
Yeah, if you just mute your microphone, we would really love it.
Well, you can hear me stuffing food in my mouth?
Hell yeah, we can hear all your dog, everything.
My dog is not barking. That's somebody else's.
Okay, all right. Well, as a favor to me, mute your microphone.
I'll mute, no problem.
Thank you, sir. So let's see. We have to go back what have we got? Oh, it's in QDoc. Oh, it's in issues, and it's issue. Come, give me the issues. Okay. So I would like to take you back, some of you that were there, back to the original face-to-face meetings over at the bar, or whatever it was, the tavern. That's what it was, the tavern. We were asked some very hard questions in those meetings. And in my opinion, one of the reasons why we didn't get engagement from some of the folks was that we could not coherently spell out something that they could get a handle on and envision, to decide whether or not it was something that they should jump into. That's my personal opinion. I am not a mind reader. I'm just saying that some of the folks, especially the highly expert FPGA people, were asking questions that were all about who's the audience, what are the requirements, and the things that people that just want to have fun are not, and that haven't really scratched on something and worked with it a little bit, or else spent a long time thinking about it. They're just not in a position to deal with that, and we weren't. We've been doing a lot on this, and we've made a lot of progress. We have stuff that does things, and there's an Amazon river of features coming down our way. And I think that it would be worthwhile to spend some effort being able to put together the initial piece of a project plan, which is what do we think we're doing and why are we doing it, and do we have enough people to do that, or do we have a plan for getting more people? Is it going to cost money? If so, where will that money come from? How will we handle it? Will the IRS be involved? Blah, blah. Top level, in my opinion, mostly, almost entirely non-technical questions that are more about, it's almost as if, I mean, it's like we were sitting in a room with a bunch of people that would potentially buy 100 of these things, but they have to understand what they're getting, when they'll get it, what will it do for them. And if we can grind on those things, and these are not fun. This is in my opinion not fun. And I've been on the front end of some of these things, and it's hard. But I think that we should create enough material that we can all have a common set of at least, initial answers to questions, or at least, or be able to say, we have no idea yet. In fact, where we're at now is that some people might think that Nick and I know exactly what we're doing and where we're going. And
of course you do.
It's not true. No, it isn't. It isn't, because
No, I know.
No, seriously, we can have various little visions and ideas and get all excited about stuff and things, but then we have to put our feet on the ground and look around at the little details of making things happen. And it's been several months for us to get to where we're at. But with more people involved, that's going to speed things up in some regards. And anyway, I've said my piece. I'm one last thing. I am not for a second suggesting that we tackle any of this tonight. That's what I'm looking for is who will help nail down some of these issues and questions and keep the rest of us informed so that we can point to a project plan when it becomes very important that we have one. I mean, it's moderately important now, and I think it will become very important.
Why don't we start an FAQ and start putting in all the questions, and then the ones we have answers to, we answer, and the other ones we leave blank until such time we have answers to them. That way we can point somebody to something and say, well, this is what we've got now, and it's not done.
Well, I think that's a great starting point. But
the
I
other
would
comment I wanted to make was, you said getting more people will make it easier. Well, that's always an argument I've had with companies I've worked for.
Did you not hear me hedge? Did you not hear me hedge?
Yeah, I guess there was.
I hedged. Okay, I wasn't going to bore the hell out of everybody by saying, just read what's his name's book, the dinosaur book, if you want to find out what happens to adding adding people to a late project.
Yeah.
Okay, but this isn't a late project.
Yeah,
this is a project that hasn't even really cranked up yet.
Right.
And one of our charters is to keep it fun.
Right.
So we're not going to get into a position where we have somehow made up a schedule deadline that we know up front we can't do.
Right.
We don't have any management standing around us who can imagine that kind of crap and just tell us to make it so. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Thank God.
Right. I think more of what we have is that there will be some really interesting and challenging and fun discussions about what amongst the many of us we all actually want to do, and finding enough alignment there on a couple of prongs so we can keep enough focus to actually get somewhere, but enough variety that we're all excited about it, because I think everyone's here for slightly different reasons, and finding the commonality is going to be the art, right? That will be the art. There are no right answers. They're the answers that work for us and the other people who'd like to join us or discover they'd like to join us.
Very wise words. Very wise words.
You know, it is. I would like to sometime in the next month, maybe a little longer, talk to the people I've been talking to at Dialogue, etc., and tell them that we give them something. Tell them we want an amount of money, probably $5,000 or $6,000, to produce a bunch of boards, and they'll either say yes or no. There are no bank accounts. There's no, I'm not going to put $5,000 from a Ukrainian bank in my personal account.
Oh, wow. That would be a really fun thing to explain to the government, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, the dialogue support people who I get along with reasonably well are in the Ukraine.
Right. I was just realizing how exciting that could get.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But I think it is, particularly with the fact they're opening up a local office. I think that an amount of money is definitely warranted from them.
Right.
And that's we don't have to answer it today, but what do we do with the money?
Right. That means we need a certain amount of infrastructure and organization to handle that, so that there's accountability for the kind of people who worry about money.
Yes, and
I'd go out on a limb and say we have to figure out how to manufacture a large number of boards.
No, and that too. Yes. If we're going to promise boards, we have to figure out how to make them.
Raise your hand if you've had anything to do with macrofab or any other assembly shop.
Not enough to talk about.
Right. Well, I have a friend who's got a lot of experience with them, but
Well, and what's a large number? I mean, is a large number 100 or is it 5,000?
I don't think we can do 1,000. That would involve $10,000 or $15,000, and that's the second round.
Right.
This is the first round, which is to maybe 100 boards, maybe a little more than that, and we give 50 of them to Dialogue, and 50 of them we run through Apex, throwing them to the wind.
So 100, that just means we all pull out our soldering boards and each of us needs to solder 20 of them, right?
Using the soldering irons that you don't happen to have.
Yeah, okay.
Hot air. Actually, it requires hot air.
Well, details.
So the goal is to build a next round should be a few boards, and then to build 100, and send them to people like EV Blog, Signal Path, a bunch of the there's the local guy who forgot his name, but people like that. People with YouTube channels that have the Swiss guy who does reviews of ESP stuff. Lots of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in some ways that's a scary proposition, but okay, fine. But that's in terms of where, at least from a dare I say corporate, but I will point of view, I think that's the that is the goal that I would like to and that involves my cleaning up the code sufficiently so that they can that I consider it usable, and I that's questionable at this point, but I think I'll do some playing with it, but that's sort of if we're going to do something, let's do it. And I'd say I don't think it has to be,
let's circle back to requirements for a second.
Okay.
I personally think that it has to be very, very easy to add code, put your own application in place, in addition to being able to program the FPGA. It needs to be very easy to have multiple FPGAs on a set of breadboards that are all stuck together, or using an expansion connector of some sort on the board that we're talking about. But really, we have to have confidence that the answer to the question, is anybody going to get interested in this and excited about this? looking at the face of it. They're not going to dig very deep. They're just going to see top level and some bullets before they make decisions. Most especially the EV blog guy. I mean, for anybody that hasn't seen him, we're talking about who's the guy? The guy with the same name as a rock and roll character, Davy Jones. Davy Jones in Australia opens up packages that people have sent him from all over, and on the fly opens the package and pokes around and reacts to what he's looking at.
Right. So
and Swiss guy probably uses an electron microscope or something, and may read every word of the documentation for all I know. But
Signal
my
Path
2
has
cents
an electron microscope, but then so do I, so it's okay.
So I mean, what Nick pointed out that in the near term, where we have pulled together the parts for another 12 to 15 boards that are similar to the current board. But to go with that, I'll be right with you. To go with that, we need to fill out the feature list and have it be solid and have it be something that a relative beginner can pick up and use without a great deal of difficulty. But maybe I'm wrong. Rob, what have you got?
So it's related. It probably fits back quite a ways, but anyway, to do what you're suggesting, it seems to me that before you put it in the hands of people who have giant followings, if you need the confidence you're talking about, a thing we want to do is we get it to the point where we think it in fact has those qualities to us. Then we need to find some people locally, people who don't necessarily have followings, but who are the kind of people we think would use it, and put it in their hands and find out what happens. Do they just quit because it's too hard? Do they look at it and go, oh my God, this is complicated? Do they pick it up and go, wow, and find out which people do which, right? Give it to some people from TriEmbed who have some projects they might want to do. Give it to some people at the Forge or at a 4-H club or at a school and find out what they do, right? Go ahead and see what happens. And maybe we have to do another revision, or maybe it's perfect, but we find out. Because otherwise what we're doing is sending it to someone who actually may have the experience to find that out, may actually have strong opinions, and we don't know what's going to happen, right? I mean, it seems to me part of how we find out is let's actually find out. Let's fail fast with people who are actually our target audience. I don't think the YouTubers are our target audience. They're our mode of getting out into the world, right? They're the ones who make it popular when we're pretty sure we're ready for that. So it seems like we might want an interim step where we go to our actual target audience, and we ought to decide what our target audience is, and it may be a split audience. Like, I really think there are people like Nick out there. They're members of TriEmbed and other places.
There are people like me out there, we hope.
And then there are people like Carl, and there might be other people like Carl, I don't know, or Don, or me. And then there are people who are like the ones who buy their first Arduino because they're in high school. Yeah, they're in the first world, but nobody's teaching them what they want to learn, and they want to try something different and hard, and they figure it out. If those audiences like it, then we could worry about other audiences if we wanted to. But it seems to me those are two really accessible audiences. And if they don't find it exciting or easy or interesting or worth doing, then we're not there yet, right? If they find it interesting, then our person in Ethiopia or our whoever else we're interested in may also find it interesting. But it feels like we want to try with some real people who their main purpose is just to be interested, right? They just, wow, you're giving me one of those. What can I do with it? And we hand them the package and see what they do. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I'm not, it's they become our beta test group. I'm not, I think that's.
I think it's fantastic.
I have no problem with that. Who's the guy in Durham who has the big following? I think we need to involve him. We need to get him, and he would be a good person. But yeah, I mean, we need some experienced, and at the moment the out of focus is on the dialogue stuff, and so I think that there are half a dozen boards that can go to dialogue, but we need to be pretty close to ready for prime time. I would not. I wouldn't object to that.
If we're gonna have 12 or 15 boards, I think dialogue should get like 3.
Yep.
Tops. Okay.
Well, probably more than that, because I want to send a couple to the Ukraine if it still exists, and a couple for the local people.
Well, we could always send them more if they said, Jesus, I wish you'd sent me 2 or 3 or 5. No, I shouldn't say we can always send them more, because we're only going to make 12 or 15. Okay. Part of this situation touches on the fact that making these boards in my basement is not an efficient.
Suboptimal.
It's suboptimal. One of the obvious questions that will come up is, why in the heck are you using these dip boards instead of sticking the FPGA on the dev board? And it's because I don't trust my ability to solder very fine pitched QFN chips. It's extremely difficult to do that by hand.
Yeah.
You have to use a microscope and set the chip down with exactly the right amount of coffee in you. And the pitch is so fine that if your hands aren't really, 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 really steady, it's hopeless.
Yeah,
okay.
And at our age, they're not steady anymore.
And to put a board through the reflow oven and then find out that chip it's not soldered on properly. Okay, the one saving grace is that these chips are cheap as dirt. So I could say that if I had a different attitude about this and was about 20 or 30 years younger, I would say, oh heck, we'll just pop that chip off and put another one on with hot air and be done with it. What I'm, as I put in one of the other issues, going forward after these 12 or 15 boards, we need to be using an assembly shop, and I need to be the guy who can relatively quickly make a small number of boards so that we can get fast feedback before we throw a bunch of money away on an assembly shop that properly builds the board with a designer or 7 designers. So anyway, I think I went off on a tangent.
Well, it's I am interested and probably will order some. If you're familiar with the size of the ESP board we're using, it's tiny. I've designed something that fits on the back of that board as a data acquisition system for something I'm playing with. And to make that work, I'm going to have to turn on my vapor phase system and spread fluorocarbons throughout the world. Not that bad. But yeah, I mean, we need to get experience with a house that does assembly and that can do that. I would suggest that there's better boards in Cary.
Way too expensive, unaffordable.
No, it's not. I'll talk to him. I'll talk to Mr. Betterboards. I know him.
Well, so do I.
He's offered to build boards for me for nothing.
Wow. But what about 20 of them?
I will. I am quite prepared to push him. He's the one that organizes the. He used to be the mayor, and I'll push him. He may say no, but I can be an asshole.
We need to move on. We need to move on. Actually, this, I think this was worthwhile. I think we somehow naturally got to the like most important, or one of the most important details, and that is the basic difference between, well, in fact, I alluded to this in the issue. Oh yeah, first sentence. Oh, why? No, it's not the first sentence. I have to scroll up. Third sentence. Steps needed to develop while holding to many small changes and refinements versus the whole thing fully formed will be inflicted on the world on date X. Rob's made the point that we have to get feedback and fail fast and be convinced that our target audience is going to be interested. And this actually might create a conflict, because if we identify a target audience X and Dialogue, Renaissance, I should say, they bought Dialogue and they're erasing the Dialogue websites. They are jumping over to the Renaissance website nowadays. Renaissance might have a very different target audience involved. I mean, in mind. They might want to have a board that's appropriate for a senior level electrical engineering student.
Then that's what they will tell us.
And that's okay. That's what they can produce, right? Unless we're depending on their money as our only way of getting there, we can be doing what we want to do. And if we can get them to support that, that's really terrific. But I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand. Maybe I'm missing something really important.
Let me spell it out. Okay. We tell them we want $5,000 to make 100 boards. And they say, before we give you the $5,000, you have to describe this thing and who it's appropriate for, who it's aimed at.
Then they come back and say that.
Right, and it seems like if we're aiming at these two audiences, one is sort of that high schooler or middle schooler or whatever, and the other is the person like Nick or Carl. We
don't know. We don't know whether that. I have no idea what they would desire or not.
Right.
I don't have a clue. Because,
so let's find out.
That's awesome.
Right. Yep. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna hit this comment and then let's go to the next one. Oh, before I do that, I think I can edit this. Who would like to help make the project plan?
I'll help.
All right. Next. Yeah, this one is to go back to here. Oh, it's time for a 5-minute break. Does anybody, would anybody desire a 5-minute time to, yeah, let's come back. It's 8:08, let's come back at 8:13. And
that would involve me getting up, so I'm going to stay around. My legs don't move that well.
I don't have any reason to move either. So anyway, let's take a break.
Well, it's I will, for anyone's interested, I will sort of expound on what I'm playing with, which is...
That's not a break, Nick.
Oh, okay.
That wouldn't be a break.
Okay. It is for me.
No.
That's okay.
Yeah, I understand that, but yeah, I hate to be, I don't want to be heavy-handed here, but I want to let my brains recharge a little bit. We've been kind of focused really hard on some of this stuff. So FYI, some of the PCR sites in Wake County are closing fairly soon, but they assure, the Wake County Health Department assures people that there are other PCR sites. And let's see. So are you fully moved, Jamie? Okay, Jamie's probably taking a break. Yeah,
everything got moved Monday. So I'm among many boxes and trying to get everything kind of situated.
Great.
But it's much quieter, a lot more peaceful. I'm in a neighborhood right across from Isabel Cannon Park, which is right by the Raleigh Rose Garden. So it's really nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
My daughter just moved into an apartment over real close to NC State, and it's so new that they're only paying half rent because the construction that's going on all around them is absolute. Yeah, it's like two or three giant buildings.
Yeah.
And one end of one building is occupied, and but it's going to be great once it's finished.
I imagine it's kind of noisy during the day, so if anybody's working from home, that might be disturbing. So worth the discount.
Yeah.
I guess I have a suggestion. Do I save that for like the open chat at the end?
Yeah, let's do that because we're coming up on the end of the break.
Okay.
And we will stop at 8:45 sharp.
Okay, got it.
In fact, I will make sure that we do that.
Cool. Pete, is your daughter in school at NC State?
She's taking some graduate courses this fall. Oh, okay. She's not in right now. She took a long break. She was doing a master's at App State and a graduate thing at NC State concurrently, and then decided, no, actually, I think I'm done with school for a while. And that was like 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. But she's picking up the geoinformation systems back up again. Okay. It's been 5 minutes. So what was I doing? Was I looking at, I guess I was looking for the next agenda item. Yeah. So I'm really unhappy with the repositories. I think we need to do a refactoring while it's only a pain in the butt instead of we can't even face it difficult. I think at this point, if we were to simply draw all of these Q underscore this, that, and the others up into a Quercus repository, it would be a relatively mechanical operation. We would lose Git history unless somebody knows some magic for how to do that. To incorporate the let me get to the correct issue here. I was just saying that I'm really unhappy about the big glop of repos, and the farther we go with it, the worse it's going to be. Like, we've currently got a repo that's dedicated to breakout boards. We've got a repo for each of 3 different hardware things. And I am really, really active with these repos, and it's extremely painful to deal with them, but also it's way more painful than that to think about where things are going. And if a year from now we have 25 hardware prototypes lying around, most of which only got, 1 board or whatever, do we really want 25 repos? I don't think we do. And I think it's early enough that it will only be a pain in the butt instead of an impossible to think about task to refactor. And so I'd like a discussion about the proposal to have one repo called Quercus.
So I'm not against that. I have a thought. I have the question that usually drives this for me. And I think the answer is what you're suggesting isn't a bad idea. The question I ask is, do they have dependencies between one another that have to be respected? In other words, would you likely be laying down a tag that says, this version of all these parts has to go together, and if you move this part forward, you need to move that part forward too, because if that's the case, you do want a single repo. The other question is, would parts of this be used by completely separate projects? In other words, would there be a project somewhere that wanted some piece of Quercus without all of Quercus, and do we care if we support that or not? Those are the 2 questions I'd ask, right? Yeah. And if we want a part that's separate, so people like docs being separate or tests being separate doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Hardware, ESP, and dialogue stuff, maybe at that level it makes sense, but then they should be dependent sub-repositories so that you can lay a tag across the whole thing, right? So that's, otherwise it should just be one big repository and we can lay a tag across it when we get to a sane version. And the sub-repositories, the sub-modules is a compromise, and it's always awkward. I mean, we've done that, right? That's what the IDF stuff does, is the sub-repository, and we know that it always causes people pain when you do it. I work in several code bases that use sub-repositories, and they're okay, but they're a pain.
Putting everything in one repository also makes the install script somewhat simpler.
Yeah. Considerably
simpler.
It does mean you have a bigger download.
That's meaningless though at this point.
Right, and you have to download all the repositories anyway.
Right.
Well, it's a lot smaller than the ESP-IDF repo.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a big one.
I don't see a real problem with it. This was an interesting experiment, but I think you're probably on the right track.
Carl, I lost the thread there. You were saying putting everything in one repository.
Okay, what it does is it makes the install script a lot easier. And to continue on that thought, whether or not other people buy into this, which is what we were talking about before, is going to be based on how easy it is to deal with the tool chain. So my feeling is, let's not worry about other projects that could use this and that would force us to keep it separate. Let's stick it all together, because right now, this is, who knows what we're going to do in another couple of years. This may be the first of many projects we do if this one works, right? So let's not worry about other projects that may use this. Let's make this as simple as possible to install. And right now, yeah, people that have a lot of experience have been able to do it fairly easily. Other people without as much have been able to get it with some help. But, you know, we're not going to have, other people are not going to have us holding their hands.
I understand.
It works or it doesn't.
I should interject that the current situation I find excruciating, because I can't really make a decent test system for the install system with all of this manual, all of these manual steps that people have to take. It's untenable. And so we're working towards a very much simpler install, but that's not to take away from your argument that at a lot of different levels, it becomes simpler. And the really, speaking of dependencies, I'm working on a set of changes in repo A that cannot be, that have to be, I have to coordinate committing those and pushing them with committing and pushing to repo B. And there's literally, it's completely impossible to not have a window that someone will fall through where they've got the new A and the old B.
So that's the argument for one repo right there. That means we need one repo.
Right.
You just clinched it. I mean, there's no, if that's actually the real world, then we can't have two repos or multiple repos.
Oops.
I mean, the only way we could do it is with submodules, and that's a cure worse than the problem.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go on.
The next, I mean, and when we get this so it is stable, then we are on just like the IDF tools. Then this becomes the old version. We increment version numbers, and it's an entirely new repo.
Yep. Is there anyone who objects to consolidating them? I can't imagine why, but if there is, this would be a good time to say why. Sounds like you've got it.
Yeah, I think you should go ahead and do this, Pete.
All right.
I mean, the only argument is the reuse of code, right? And I just don't see any value in that at this point.
Right. Yeah. We can do something about it in a year or two.
Right.
Okay. Now, what about this part right here? Hey, I love that. You see that little extra attention is needed flag? That's pretty cool.
I can help you if you want to need some help consolidating it. I don't know that I can figure out how to keep the history, but we can probably survive that.
Well, yeah, I was thinking I would poke around and maybe you know, look at Stack Exchange and poke around a few other things and see if there is a way to somehow cause the history of you know, of the small repo to be gotten into the large, you know, into the mono repo. But the other way to look at this is there have been relatively few changes, very few. I mean, and they've been superficial.
Leave the old repos there and move forward. Have a pointer to the old repos and say that's where the history is. I mean, that's the other possibility.
Yeah. So herein is the other thing. We were talking about where we were going to put the docs before in the test. Let's not do that. Let's create one repo out of everything, and we put the docs and everything, tests, everything in one place.
So you don't think that the docs and tests should go under the corresponding subsystems?
Well, yeah, but if they're all in one repo, then that's where they go, right? Under the subsystem within the single repo.
Okay, I thought you were describing something, a single, that web page. Thank you, Rob.
Right, sure.
What was your last comment that I was typing in? I wrote the word have. Let's see. Well, if it's
I'm willing to have my
important,
comment lost to history.
it will come back to us. All right. So, oh, I know what we wanted to put in though. Pete and Rob.
Yeah, at some point.
Right, I'll help. Right, that. Oh darn! I told you I was willing to let that comment be lost.
Actually,
I was willing to have it be lost, Peter.
No, that was
come back to you so easily.
That was a different. No, it was. I swear it was a different comment. Your volunteering was a little bit earlier than that. It's lost to the sands of time. I think that we can do it pretty easily.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. So, I think what we should do is simply decide what we're going to do and then do it. You know,
the hardest part is I don't have any time till Saturday to look at it, but by Saturday evening, for sure, I can look at it if you want to work together.
Fine. That's fine,
okay.
and I can spend long minutes meditating about it.
Great.
So good. Okay. Next, we've got. And my remark, I thought, well, somebody's going to be offended about that. You know, that's really harsh to say something's very stupid. I'm the one that created all of these freaking repos. Okay, so that's me. I'm the one that was stupid.
We all experiment with the difference. I mean, we do.
Yeah. So
only learn it by touch and feel.
Yeah. So the next one, is there any? The next one is this green number 1, which I will go to as fast as I can. This is the hardware. Well, in fact, actually, you know what? Now that we're just going to have a mono repo, all we have to do is take this issue and say, I'm always one click short here. I suggest that
what is in this repo?
Yeah, I've mentioned this multiple times. This used to be called FireDeck, and this is the 10 by 10 centimeter board. That's kind of a mini, a miniature motherboard that has the same base functionality as the standalone boards that we've been messing with.
This was the original board you were originally talking about eons ago.
Right, it's still an interesting board.
I propose that we just stick this into the Quercus, lowercase Quercus repo and be done with it.
Yeah.
For now. Done.
Goes in the hardware
Next.
section, right?
Yeah.
Right.
All right. The next one. Multiple pieces of work need test plans. And I was moaning a minute ago about the install script. By the way, Dawn is reviewing a fix. Due to my screw up, we weren't actually using the 5 branch, and it mutated out from under us. And so, had you tried to fetch the tried to use the install script and fetch a new ESP-IDF, you would not have gotten any joy, and you wouldn't get any joy right now. But Dawn and I are getting ready to push a fix, and it will in fact be using the stable 4.4 branch, and
I wonder, when you guys were talking about that earlier today, I wonder if there's a pathing issue that's causing it not to find that header.
now I can tell you exactly what happened. The 5.0 guys refactored the entire repo, and the components directory disappeared. And the dependency on the Wi-Fi ESP was somehow not being satisfied by some piece of code that was thinking that it was on 4.4 or something along those lines, and so it was just a screw up. We weren't actually using the branch that we
somebody should post a bug report with them and let them know that this is screwed up.
Are you kidding me? No.
I do that all the time with third party.
No. There's no contract. There was no contract for backwards compatibility. The 5.0 is the bleeding edge. That's where the new development is happening. And when they go to make a new stable release, they will have all of their ducks lined up. As Nick has pointed out, the Espressif folks really know what they're doing. And so before they put out a stable release, it will be as close to bulletproof as they can get it. But it's literally in the middle of major changes.
Okay, I didn't know that it was a, what is it, alpha or beta release. I thought it was a stable.
No, 5.0 is the bleeding edge current.
Okay.
I don't know that it's nightly. I don't know what granularity it is, but it's, if you're using this, you have to adapt. And we were not in the position to adapt to the components directory disappearing. So anyway, popping the stack here. I don't know if I ever even got to the, okay, we're just going to stick this and be done with it. So I'm going to, oh, I didn't hit close. How do you do close after the fact? Close is completed.
Just, yeah, close. I mean,
Bam.
you can leave
Okay.
a comment and just hit close.
I did it. Yeah, I did it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Test plan. Oh, I think I was already attempting to go to a test plan. Oh yeah, I started to blather about the fact that currently the manual steps involved in installing make any kind of decent testing impossible from a human standpoint. So what I foresee for testing for the install process is exhaustive testing of all the switches and the options, exhaustive testing of different flavors of boards, although, well, for some reasonable subset of all boards, and being able to do that in a mechanized fashion, where you're looking for specific behavior, and no news is good news. And when something, when there's a regression, you have very, very little to look at to decide, oh, it's not broken, it's still working. But and so I have some test plan ideas in mind for the tools, but I'll be passing those on to Dawn, who is taking over the install subsystem. And let's everybody give her a hand.
So may I have a word then to say to Dawn?
Yes.
Dawn, I just wrote an issue in the QTools repo that is to do the DOS variant of the install it, and assigned it to myself because I've said I'll do that. Obviously, I'd gladly let you take it over, but I'm glad to do it as well. Just FYI that there's a piece of work that I'm going to do is I'm going to make a Windows native version of install it.
Yeah. No,
yeah, that's great.
I'm sorry, I didn't think about that.
No, it's all right.
I recall, I
just didn't want us to trip over each other.
Yeah. And Paul has volunteered to help on that too. And so effectively, for a short period of time, there will be 3 people, and having a Windows installer will be a big deal. We've been really, really lucky that of the people that have been that are part of the alpha test group are all Linux users except Paul, and which is why Paul is motivated to help Rob. And
Dawn, you are DT Trembleth. Are you D Trembleth? Is that right?
Where?
Is that your login in Git?
Let me check just a second. I can never remember.
Well, what's your last name?
All right. Well, I do know my last name. That's Trembath. TREM.
Trembath. Hey, this is you, D Trembath. I just didn't know how to say it right.
Yeah, just sometimes I used to use DA and sometimes D, and I can never remember what's where. But anyway, yes, okay, it's unlikely so there's another one.
So I've just assigned you and Paul also so that we all talk about it. I'll do the heavy lifting, but that way you guys will see what I'm doing. I'll remember who to tell.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so test plans.
Actually, one more thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Pete, is your idea of bringing the repositories together. Can I say how great it is? Because you know how you had to make a list of the issues from every different repository? You're going to have one set of issues and you're going to be able to just go like to the repo and go to the list of issues and not have to keep jumping around. I think it's brilliant. Sorry to interrupt.
Could No. Could I suggest that we always put in subsystem/subdirectory name as the first part of the issue?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if the issue is about docs, or if the issue is about aardvark, let's cut ourselves.
You can add this to issues, so it's actually in the drop-down.
Which drop-down?
We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's not.
We'll look at that.
Yeah. So my suggestion is simply that we provide a little bit of navigation, and if it's nice and short, we can then say, like in our commit messages, we can say blah 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 satisfies word followed by number, and just like that's the convention. This commit is relevant to this issue of this subsystem. But as far as the test plan, it's going to vary a lot depending on what it is that we're testing. Like, for decades I've dreamed I've not dreamed. I've imagined what it would be like to have a solution to the problem of testing GUIs. And at Sun, there was actually some automated stuff that would actually intercept X events and do all kinds of crazy things where it could actually figure out whether or not the Java, libraries were doing the right thing on the screen. But generally, it's amazingly disgusting to have to without a massive department of people that you can draw on to do much manual stuff. So my plan for the install is to somehow make it as automated as possible, so that you start it on a Friday night or a Sunday night or a Monday night or whatever, and then the next morning you look at the results. I think that's possibly doable with Linux. I have no idea whether it's doable.
It's command line based, right? It's from the terminal. So we can use expect. The tool that does that is expect. It'll deliver CLI and then verify the responses with regular expressions. We can do that.
I'm familiar with expect, but also, I mean, I think that if we're lucky, I mean, I can see the need for expect for some of it. And
okay, there must be parts I'm missing.
And if the window, well, some of these things they're so fixed in stone that you can just capture output and do a diff against a golden known good output. But yeah, so and if the Windows install can be handled similarly using PowerShell, that would just be fantastic.
That's my plan.
Okay.
As long as none of the installer is Papa GUI, we'll be good with it.
Okay. I don't think there's any. I don't have anything to put in right this moment. So let's look at the clock. We've got 3 minutes. Let's just look down at these items. If any of these jump out at you, like, wow, I wonder what that is, holler. And I know that Nick's got some stuff to share during the final part of the meeting. Part of it is described in about 2/3 of the way down, doc issue number 2, network-centric operation of Quercus. It's got some very interesting stuff. I think a few comments about that have been shared on Signal. Any questions?
Does micro DNS mean multicast DNS?
No, it's just a very simple implementation of DNS, and it's what what's the Apple?
Bonjour is the Apple one.
It's the Bonjour.
Right, that's multicast DNS, right?
It just does a local DNS.
Right, multicast. It does like an ARP for DNS.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the original one that was developed by Apple, but Linux no longer uses that. They use a different one that's compatible. So that's what allows you to be able to do hostname.local.
Okay.
Right, I just didn't realize there was a thing called micro DNS. That was all.
Well, and you know what? I haven't actually confirmed that stands for that the
Right.
M stands for micro, but it's downright
I know
simple
what
compared
multicast
to.
DNS is, and I think that's what you want, which is the bonjour capability.
Yeah, maybe that's what the M stands for. But anyway, the big deal with that is that it allows us to eliminate, I mean,
Right.
as an intermediate step to getting to the nirvana that's in the network-centric features, it allows us to make the install completely free of any need for anybody to intervene. You go from running the install it script to starting to pointing your web browser at localhost, and that's it. There's 2 steps, and all of the other rigmarole is eliminated.
Right.
Okay, so we got through an amazing pile of those items. I think it was a very, very effective meeting. So let's call the end to it. Shall we keep the recording on so that Nick's sharing is captured?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I got to stay on with it, but that's fine. I don't have to do anything.
I wanted to share my suggestion or offering.
Sure.
Yes.
When's a good time now?
Sure.
This is back to one of our earlier topics. You guys were talking about your target market and figuring that stuff out and having that conversation. My friend Noreen Sullivan, she's a sociologist who works in the data sciences, and she'd be happy to start a conversation about the marketing or branding or target markets, that sort of thing. She's worked with Facebook, Pixar, Yahoo, and Salesforce. So if and when you'd like to entertain that, I'd be happy to connect y'all.
Great.
Good.
Thanks for the resource. And I need to remember to copy and paste these whatever you call them over here, the chat. That's it.
Right. Yeah, it's
So
the
what have you got,
Apache.
Nick?
It's
Sorry.
the Apache daemon that does what bonjour or whatever it is does.
Okay. What do you got, Nick?
The fact that JavaScript runs locally on the machine means that, for all intents and purposes, the code does not have to be on the machine. You can run, because of the cross-platform, the cause stuff. You can bring up a website that resides on a remote machine and program the ESP and the aardvark directly from that. You do not actually need to install any code on the machine.
You mean to make it public?
It's the install steps would be that you load the IP, you load the you give the board access to your network, and then you click on a website, and it's not public. It's
on the local net, you mean?
The website resides on a remote machine, not on the local net, but it accesses the board on the local net.
All right.
It acts like Easel when you're running a CNC machine. Easel runs on a browser out there, but it acts on the local thing attached to your laptop and runs a CNC machine. So all the hard code is out on the cloud, and locally there's just a small driver that it can operate against to cause whatever you've programmed in the cloud to happen on your local machine, right? I mean, it's basically the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is public. So
yeah, I mean, it's, you have to have passwords and tokens to get into your board, but yes, it's public.
Right. So my comment here, and the reason why I brought this up, is that Node is horribly insecure if you're going on anything public.
No, you're not running Node.
You're not. So there's a Node API.
Right, but you're not. You only run that when you run it. It is a regular website, HTTP and JavaScript. The Node does not run on the external site. It looks to the external site simply like a regular website. There's no Node stuff in it. It runs Apache.
Okay, it runs on Apache, you mean? Yeah.
The JavaScript is running in your browser.
Yep.
Right. So what's happening is your browser is getting the program and getting computations done for it by a server that's just like any other server out in the cloud, written however you want to write your server out in the cloud. And then I'm assuming, since it's cross-site, your browser is then using the results to talk to your local device and program it.
Yep.
With whatever it got by computing something out in the cloud, right?
Yep, and it can do the reverse, in that you can take the data from your device and display it inside of this website existing on a remote machine. But
right.
My concern though is security on the data transfer between any remote machine and anything you're doing, because
there's no data transfer between. There are two ways you can run this. You can run it entirely locally on your machine with Node, which is insecure but does not involve external
local. Doesn't matter at that point.
Or you can run it externally, in which case it does not use Node. And yes, there's a data transfer. Yes, there are some security issues. But if you're dealing with a high school crowd, that's probably acceptable. If you're dealing with a professional crowd, the extent to which the stuff is encrypted, and that, but you can take both of your you can take your dialog file and click on a button, and it loads it. The dialog data loads directly to the device. It does not go out on the web. You can also do an over-the-air upgrade. You can have a bin file on your local machine, click on it, and load that bin file out to the ESP, and it will do an over-the-air upgrade. At no point does that data go out over the web.
Okay, I mean, I dealt with this through my entire professional career, where things were put out on the net that were so incredibly insecure that people got broken into, and data hijacking and all sorts of stuff. You just
it is then you are the ideal person for me to work with, and you can shoot holes at it.
That I can.
There is also I've got all sorts of experimental versions I've played with, one of which uses the ESP now, which is a long-range non-TCP protocol that I have for example, I have a pH meter that is connected to an ESP 8266, which is dumping data into aardvark, which means I can use all of the aardvark graphing stuff that I've been playing with, and the data comes in, and that has a technical range of 1,000 meters. I'm going to call it 500 meters, but you can have you can, inside of Arduino, you can write pieces of code that will run on an ESP8266, and it is entirely compatible, presuming you have all my modules, it's entirely compatible with aardvark.
Right.
And that was done.
So ESP now works on any of the expressive processors.
Well, not only does ESP work, but it uses, you don't even have, all you have to do is, yeah, ESP works on all of the expressive boards. Aardvark, if you enable this protocol, which ESP wrote, called ESP now, which is again, can be highly encrypted, you could put a doorbell at the end of your driveway and detect people coming into your house, and it would send the data of 500 meters to your house. And the data ends up inside of aardvark.
Yeah, you just need an ESP processor of some sort on both sides. But
yeah, you can actually do this with Raspberry Pis too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
I didn't know you could do the now protocol on an RPI.
You can. It's just a folded stack. If you have
cool.
You can run it on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, I mean it's just code.
Yep. Yeah, I mean you got it. There's a particular protocol to get to the hard code data, but yeah, this will run on a Raspberry Pi, which is kind of confusing, but okay.
Yeah, ESP now running on a Raspberry Pi. That's kind of funny.
So I've got the issue. This enhancement issue is part of the Q_doc repo currently, and this is not a short-term project. It will be over the horizon.
That's where I live.
And getting it, so this is proposed as a and one important way to look at this is that it eliminates or can ultimately eliminate the need for flashing via USB and flashing. I mean, the updates of ESP32 software can be done over the air, hypothetically.
Yep.
And that could be very, very powerful, playing to the how simple can we make this theme.
It would mean that you could run the dialogue tools on your local machine, whatever, you could run them on a Windows machine. It also means that you can communicate with the ESP and do things like graph the data from an iPad. So you can, as long as the iPad's on your local network, you can talk to it you can grab data and communicate with it from an iPhone. It's bizarre to me, but okay. So those.
Okay. Well, it's 9 o'clock. I don't know. Maybe it's not. 8:58.
In 2 minutes.
So I have to go. If Carl may want to turn off the recording, but if others want to stick around,
yeah.
This Jitsi stays up all the time.
Okay, to